What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to another lesson on the right mindset. Today, we're going to go over, as you can see, how to name your characters in a novel. Some of the things we'll explore in this lesson is I'll go over the easy way to do it, the fun way to do it, and the hard way to naming characters in your novels. So let's get that intro going, shall we? Click. Okay, well, if you're new here and you haven't already, or maybe you've been here for a while and haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. Remember, we do lessons about craft, we analyze and review storytelling, and of course, we do interviews with fellow writers. Let's get right to it the easy way. The easy way has a lot of wiggle room. That's right. It's less about putting in hours of time to figure out a name and more about getting the names out of your head. If names don't matter to you, the easiest way might be the way for you. However, keep in mind you might care about the main characters, your protagonists, and the antagonistic forces. But, in any novel, you're going to run into one-line characters, throwaway individuals, etc. I know there's like 16 barkeeps somewhere, right? Okay, so in my humble opinion, you should give a lot of weight to the names moving your narrative forward. But sometimes you run into those secondary characters that might not need exciting or exotic names unless you want to give them to them. Because this is the easy way. But the fun way is there. And don't remember, or remember, uh, the hard way is there as well. Okay. So, what are some of the easy ways to name characters? Well, the first is right off the top of your tongue. You can take names you know from from throughout your life. That's right. These are your friends, family, associates, names you've heard throughout your journey. If I were you, and listen, I'm not you, but if I were you, I'd write them down. Any name you hear that makes you think that was interesting, just pop that down. Because I love names. And when I hear or see a name that gets me excited, I take it down right away. Will I use it? Maybe. Maybe not. Depends. Or I'll use a variation of the name, depending, which leads us later to the fun way. So, number 2, why don't you grab a baby book or go to the internet? And what's nice about baby name books or the internet is that you can look up meanings to names. So if you want your name to have some sort of representation of the character or subvert expectations of the character by giving them a name that might not represent who they are. If you want a name that means something specific for your main characters, you can organize them out by being able to see what they mean, right? But you might realize that there are names you've never, ever would have thought of, and there are names from all over the world. With that said, be respectful of the names you choose from other parts of the world. Of course, you can always use the names as a guideline and change things up, especially if your novel takes place in a world far, far away in a time long, long forgotten. Number 3, the easy way. Third easy way. You don't need to find the perfect name. Believe it or not, most names in fantasy books are skipped over. Trust me. When you see a long, jumbled, lettered name, our brains don't have time for it. What audiences care about the most are the characters' arcs, who they are emotionally, their choices. Most importantly, do your characters feel three-dimensional or more multi-dimensional, right? When in doubt, remember you can use a placeholder name, because why waste your time trying to think of a name when you need to get that narrative out? So get on working that narrative out of your head, write your story, and when you're finished with the story, you can Control F or If you're using a Mac, whatever, what is the Mac button? Command F, I don't know. Apple F, to find the placeholder name and replace it with a name you like. I do this. I sometimes will like, if it's, well, the protagonist, I usually have a good name, but if another character comes up that is invented through discovery, I might call him Jim B or character A or character B, and I keep note of the character placeholder name on a separate piece of paper, and whatever. Because I promise you that a name will not make or break your manuscript, especially when it comes to the secondaries. All right, let's talk a little bit about the fun way, shall we? The fun way places a little bit more freedom in the discovery, but also allows you to be part of the journey. Think of the fun way as a technique to reduce the stress of having to choose or go out of your way to make a name that works. Some of these ideas are more playful than practical, but they will give you a chance to find names with a bit of hope behind them, a bit more pizzazz. All right. Believe it or not, there are name generators on the internet. So if you're not really a big fan of sitting there and coming up with these amazing, fantastic, insanely spelled names, just go to a name generator. Whether your names are for fantasy, romance, or general fiction, you might be like, I'm not putting in the work for a name, but I want a fun name, and that's fine. Trust me, it's your book. So have at it how you want to go about it. You're not beholden to anyone. Just write how you want to write. Name generators take the stress off of thinking. They allow you to just be like, I need a name. They give you a list of names. You pick one of the names. You can take the names, right? So what's fun is that these generators generate different names for different genres. A fun website is wheelofnames.com, where you can place a bunch of names in the list, then hit the button for the wheel to choose the names for you. So you kind of have to find names. You go to your list, you go to like your baby book, or you go to your internet, list the names, and you pick names that you like, but not names that you're like, this one stands out. And then just let wheelofnames.com do the choice picking for you. All right. But my point is, sometimes let the machines do the work unless they sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Don't trust Skynet. Anyway. 2. Open a map, check the streets, and allow yourself to discover a name at random. What? I'll tell you. I do this. Okay. This is fun. Okay. The power of names are all around us. Have you ever been to a town, drove along a street, found a location that hit you right away where you're like, that's a good name, right? And you just like, I'm going to take that. As an example, okay? Let me bring this down so you can see it better. Boop. I'm going to share screen with you in a second. So just hold your horses. Boop. Okay. Boop. There we go. Look. Hey. All right. So, as an example, you're driving along and you see the street Crimson Boulevard, right? And you're like, Thomas, I'm not going to use that name. There's no way I'm using that name. That's not an interesting name. I don't feel like it fits my characters. I don't have time for this. What are you doing? I come to your channel and I hit the subscribe button, and this is what you give me? Crimson Boulevard? Well, what if I told you, and I'm going to, that you could play with it? What about, instead of Crimson, Imson Avard? So Imson Avard is just this. Boop. Boop. And Avard. So we took something from that, right? What about Heather Drive? Now, obviously you could be like, oh wait, Heather's a name. But what if we didn't take Heather, but we played with it? What about Ether? Ether Ive, right? And that's just taking this and this. All right. So you can find names all over the place and just play with them. They're everywhere, I'm son, you call it I'm son or Imsum, Avard. uh, Ether, or you could even be like Ather, right? My point is, if you just want to have fun with it, just go and look for names that exist on streets, towns, neighborhoods, whatever the case may be, and just put it on the paper and break it up, move it around. Because names are all around us, and all we need to do is look, record, and adjust as needed. All right. By the way, this is a putting this in. I know I said the easy way, fun way, and a hard way, but I'm going to throw a quick list in there. Before I get into the hard way of naming characters, here are a few ways to get your brain thinking. And again, these are ideas, not the only way to do it. Research historical names. Look into different time periods, cultures, and regions to find historically accurate names that fit your story's setting. Makes sense? This can add depth and authenticity to your characters. You can even find meaningful names. Choose names that have symbolic or thematic significance related to your character's traits, roles, or the overall theme of the story. For example, a character with a wise and knowledgeable, who's wise and knowledgeable, could be named Sage. Now, obviously, that's an easy way to do it, but this is not for people that want to come up with crazy. And by the way, I use the word crazy as in like I come up with crazy names. I like to have these unique, insane names. I am guilty as charged, but this is for people that are having trouble coming up with names or just like, I just need a name. Give the name some depth, even if it's as simple as Sage. Anyway, you could also do alternative names, experiment with names that have the same initial letter or sound, as it can make characters memorable and give them a distinct presence. You may have heard this in Peter Parker or Severus Snape. Okay. And then name adaptations. Consider adapting existing names or words to create unique character names. You can modify the spelling, combine parts of different names, or use anagrams to generate something fresh and new. Just be careful not to infringe on trademarks or intellectual properties. I like to use, for fun, for like characters that are not main characters, for fun, I will take words. That's not true. One of my main characters is a word that I turned into a name. But a lot of side characters, like a last name might be Mostly. Their last name is Mostly. And that's just me having fun. I'm just lazily. And then they go, why'd you do it? I go, well, because he's mostly in the book. But he's also mostly not in the book. All right, moving on. Don't unsubscribe because of all my jokes. Don't unsubscribe because of that joke. If anything, subscribe because of that joke. Because you know they're only going to get better from there. All right, the hard way. I apologize. I will have my people contact your people. How deep do you want to go into name creation? Well, now we get into the hard way. I know you want to not only allow the names to have meaning, but you also want your world to feel lived in. So this is going to be the hard way. This is how to generate names and putting a little bit of time and effort into them, okay? So this is when you have to deal with basically, if you want depth to your names and you really want to kind of like sit down, it's the hard way or the highway. You either got to put the time in or you don't, right? So first thing you need to look at is character backgrounds. Develop a backstory for your characters and consider how their backgrounds might influence their names. For instance, if a character comes from a fictional tribe, their name could reflect their tribal traditions or customs. Which brings us to name patterns. Establishing naming conventions or patterns within your story world. For example, all characters from a particular region may have names ending in Ara or Sun. As in, if I may. Boop, boop. Just so you could see it. Like Ara or Sun. Right? So Peterson, like those names exist. So you have to think of it. You can think of names and regions. So once you start understanding the names based on customs and backgrounds of characters, you could start thinking, well, if this character's named that and they're from this region and they're part of this culture, what can I continue to use within that name? What about it? Last names have this feel to them, or the surnames have a certain feel, or their main name has a certain feel. Then you get into personality and traits. You want to think about your character's personality, traits, or physical appearances and choose names that align with them. Okay? A gentle character might have a soft sounding name, while a strong and commanding character could have more of a powerful name. Like Duke. Duke. The more you know, G.I. Joe, right? Knowing is half the battle. Okay. The phonetics and sounds of names are also something you can experiment with, different combinations of sounds to create unique names. You can get in a little trouble with this where they look like a jumbling of letters, and then people are just like, so blah, 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 ran over to the horse. Okay. But you can mix vowels and consonants, repeat certain letters, or use uncommon letter combinations. Basically, play around with the rhythm and flow of names to make them feel distinct and memorable. And remember, if we go back to names, I'll give you a little something something. Do you want a little something something? I'll give you a little something something. Hey, look, it's a little something something. All right, let's say we're over here. Let's go down a little bit. All right, and let's just use Peter just to make it easy. You could say Peter, right? You could do Peter, right? Like you could even, you know what? There's a rolled R, so it's Peter. It's Peter, and the two R's mean something. Like you're allowed to play around with that kind of stuff, Like Thomas, my name, the H is silent, so it's actually Tomas, right? But because it's the English spelling, it gets that H, but it's not Thomas. It's Thomas, right? So you could look at names like that. And you could start kind of playing around with that. Maybe Peter, because this would be Peter, but Peter, right? Because in your world, PY makes the long E sound, or EY makes the long E sound. Not so you could actually do this, right? And if you establish it through dialogue or what have you, you could establish that because someone will be like read it on a paper and they're like, is Peter here? And they go, actually, the YE where I come, from my back home, YE is the long E. So it's Peter, because you don't need that second E to make Peter, but the ER is there. So, again, you could allow narrative and story building and world building and culture to affect the way you spell names. As long as you explain it in the book, it'll add depth to your story. Which brings me, I got a couple more things I'm going to mention with the hard way. So now you could also build in cultural influences. So you could draw inspiration from real world cultures, mythology, and folklore if you have to or want to. You can modify or adapt names from different languages to suit your fantasy world. Like I like Aztec names and things like that, but I'll take those as a structural, a foundational level, and I'll build on that for certain people. I like to modify or adapt names from different languages to suit my fantasy needs. So this can add depth and authenticity to your fictional cultures and their naming conventions. Which brings us to naming conventions. Establish consistent naming conventions within your fantasy world to build real world elements to immerse the reader. For example, certain races, species, or regions may have specific linguistic patterns or sounds that are common in their names. This can help create a sense of cohesion and believability. Okay. Remember, word association is a part of the hard way, okay? You could brainstorm words and concepts related to your characters, traits, abilities, or roles, then alter and rearrange these words to create names that invoke those associations. For instance, a powerful wizard could be named Aurelian to convey a sense of magic and radiance. All right, so it's like aura and lion, right? So Aurelian. So there you go, Aurelian. Aura lion, but then aura is spelled. Oh, if I'll take the name, put it right here for you, and then you could. What is that? What just happened there? All right, boop. So again, you could just take the name and be like, look, it's Aura Lion, right? So, but again, we didn't use an A, we used an E, Aura Lion, right? But if you say Aura Lion, or if you go Aura Lion, right? So, and also remember, syllables work where it's a vowel per syllable. So AU is aura, right? Aura. So this is or. Actually, this would be like aura, or the E is silent. And then lion, lie, and then on, aura line. So anyway, that's a little English. A little, what is it? What do we call that? English lesson. Anyway, map and geography. So remember that in your fantasy world, you have to have distinct regions or locations. So you should consider using geographical features as inspiration for names. This comes to mountains, rivers, forests, cities within your world can provide a rich source of unique and evoke names that invoke specific feelings. But again, remember, like back in the medieval days, or like your career or the area you're from could influence your surname, because like if there were more than two Bills, well, Wilson or whatever. Oh, that's Bill's kid. Or if you're from Peterstown, your last name might just be Peterstown. But the same thing with mountains. If you have a mountain range name, that mountain range might influence the names around them, especially if they rely on the mountain or the river or the forest. And of course, if you create a language in your world, which I have a video series that teaches you how to create a language, it's a very simple way of creating a language. It's not the complex way. There are books. I don't have the book around here, but there are books that go into the depth of creating languages. It's up there. I don't want to get up. I just want to do the video. But in the language videos, I do talk about the book and how to get the book. But anyway, so for more immersive experiences, you can create a fictional language or naming system for your fantasy world. And this is done to developing set of rules, grammar, and vocabulary to generate authentic names that reflect the culture and history of your world specifically. Final thoughts. At the end of the day, experiment and refine your names. Say them out loud, write them down, and see how they feel in the context of your story. Make adjustments as needed until you find the perfect fit, because remember, it's your story. Just because you pick a name at the beginning of your journey doesn't mean that before you publish the book, you have to keep that name. It's your process. Naming your characters in a novel is an exciting and crucial part of the storytelling process. Whether you choose the easy way, the fun way, or dive into the hard way, the ultimate goal is to create names that resonate with your readers and enhance your narrative. Remember, names can carry meanings, reflect cultural influences, and contribute to the authenticity of your world. So be open to inspiration from various sources, experiment with sounds and associations, and consider the personalities and backgrounds of your characters. With creativity and thoughtfulness, you can craft names that bring your characters to life and captivate your readers' imagination. Next video in the series will be about what makes a character interesting. We will not, I repeat, we will not talk about likable characters in that video. Of course you want your character to be likable, but that isn't necessarily what makes them interesting. But we will touch on complexity and other elements that contribute to full functioning characters that build multi-dimensional experiences for your reader. Question: what is your process for naming characters in your stories? Let me know in the comments below. Share the knowledge with the community. You know what I'm saying? And as always, if you like what you're watching and you've not done so already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. That's about it. And as always, what do we say here? Keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you later. Okay, bye.